Let's consider the relationship between rationality and the weight of evidence that we have for a proposition. And we're going to consider three scenarios. The first one is depicted right on the screen here. That is, whatever the proposition P, whether it's the coin landed heads, the Jets are going to win the Super Bowl, whatever proposition we want to talk about. Now, if the weight of evidence is heavier for the proposition, as we see in our little diagram, versus against the proposition, what we are rational in believing is that what we're rational in doing, is believing the proposition, right? If a person's evidence concerning the proposition supports the proposition, in other words, we have a lot of evidence weighing us down, weighing our thoughts down, it's rational for us to believe the proposition in that case. Now, if the evidence is weighed down in the other direction, if the evidence is weighed down against the proposition, maybe we have a little evidence for the proposition, but most of our evidence is against the proposition, what we should do is, it's reasonable for us in that case to disbelieve the proposition. That is, if a person's evidence goes against the proposition, it's rational, it's reasonable for the person to disbelieve the proposition. And finally, if the weight of the evidence is even, or if we have no evidence at all, then the weight of the evidence is even. So if the person's evidence is neutral with respect to the proposition, it's rational for the person to suspend judgment concerning the proposition. So now this is telling us something about evidence and rationality, and what we're getting out of this is what might be called the principle of rational belief, which just tells us that if a person's evidence concerning a proposition supports, is in favor of the proposition, then it's rational for the person to believe the proposition. If the person's evidence goes against the proposition, it's rational for the person to disbelieve the proposition. And finally, if the person's evidence is neutral, it doesn't decide either way, then it's rational for the person to suspend judgment. And I think this is a pretty good guideline for us to understand what makes a belief rational versus what makes a belief irrational.